Guys, today we're going to be talking about Kenaf, a sustainable plant that's indigenous to West Africa. Just a little bit about Kenaf in terms of, the name and the etymology. It comes from the word Hibiscus cannabinus, and it's from the family of sort of hemp and jute. So the cannabinus, obviously, some of you might obviously recognize that it's similar to the cannabis plant in terms of its look. It's got that 5 sort of finger look. It's indigenous to West Africa. It's an ancient crop, so it was used by the ancient Egyptians about 4,000 years ago. They used it for the sails of their boats because they found that it wouldn't rot after many, many years of usage. And traditionally, it's also used for rope and twine, and it's related to the cotton crop and the okra crops. So today, most of the Kenaf is actually grown in Asian countries, India, China, Malaysia, and they sort of export it. Even though it comes from Africa, they export it, similar to the story of the palm tree, how Malaysia and Thailand do so well with palm trees, but the original palm came from Nigeria, the ones that are used in Malaysia at least. So that's a bit of a sort of top level understanding of Kenaf. Now let's go into the sort of properties of Kenaf. First of all, it's got a very rapid growth. So it grows in about 150 days, and Kenaf reaches about 18 feet in height. So one thing I'm going to be talking about a lot today is the sort of use for Kenaf in the paper and pulping industries. So as some of you may know how paper is made, you chop down trees, make the wood chippings and convert that to pulp and then paper. So, substituting Kenaf for trees, obviously you can see the immediate benefits, something that grows in 150 days compared to 17 years. You can start, creating paper products at a much quicker rate. And also it helps with the sustainability, mitigating deforestation and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very sustainable alternative for paper making. Again, it's got a high yield. So when you're talking about, again, the trees, the southern pine, which produce about 5 to 10 tons of dry fiber per acre, Kenaf can do about 3 to 5 times as much per acre. So again, high yield, rapid growth, great properties to have. And then moving on to the paper making characteristics, which I'm going to delve into a bit more in the future of this webinar. Kenaf uses less chemicals. So when it comes to sort of heating and the time required for the pulp fibers to be made, compared to the wood pulp, you use a lot less chemicals, and also Kenaf contains less lignin. So lignin essentially is just a resin that is used to bind the cellulose fibers of the trees. I don't want to get too technical here, but the whole idea is that you need more chemicals to release the lignin from the wood as opposed to the Kenaf. So when you're making paper products, you don't actually need as much chemical to break down that lignin. And so Kenaf can be quickly and easily pulped while using less chemicals, and you can use less harmful chemicals as well. And then moving on, Kenaf doesn't actually need any herbicides and pesticides, so making organic Kenaf products is very easy. And then finally, it's a hydrophobic product. I'll be going into that when I talk about Kenaf for the oil and gas industry. So with the BP oil spill, Kenaf was used on the water because it's hydrophobic. So you could just pour Kenaf on top of the water and it would sort of soak up that oil whilst also floating on the water. So what you do is, or in the case in the BP oil spill, they threw the Kenaf all on top of the water, it soaked up the oil, and then they sort of hoovered up that Kenaf oil mixture and then disposed of it in the way that they wanted to. So a quick picture of, a closer look at the Kenaf plant. So the two main parts that are of interest in the Kenaf are the outer sort of bast fiber, which is sort of the outer bit, and then the inner Kenaf core, which you can see here. So those are the two parts that we'll be talking about. Why Kenaf? So I kind of delved into that a little bit when I talked about the properties of it, but again, just to sort of look into this again. So a lot of you may know, industrial hemp, which is different from marijuana, which people smoke and get high, etc. Industrial hemp has many uses. It can be used to make paper. It can be used in the construction industry. It can be used for textiles. It can be used to make CBD products for chronic pain, etc. So industrial hemp is being legalized in many nations, but particularly in West Africa, it hasn't been legalized. North America, there's a lot of legalization going on. Europe has been legalized in many countries, but in Africa, it's been slow to come by. So knowing this, it's important for us in Africa to look for our own indigenous solutions, indigenous sustainable solutions that might not already be legalized in African countries. Again, reducing deforestation in terms of using Kenaf as opposed to trees. Less chemical pollution, because you need less chemicals to process and make the Kenaf pulp. Also, the end or the results Kenaf paper is actually really good quality. A lot of books have been produced using Kenaf, and the quality that comes out is very good. In Japan, for example, the government is investing a lot into Kenaf because they've got limited land space, but they still want to make their own paper products, so they use Kenaf to limit the sort of deforestation and to maintain their sort of natural environment. And then also starting with the problem first. So sometimes I feel like when we look for solutions to African problems, we just tend to take solutions that have been found in West African countries, and then, in European countries. We take those solutions and then we just apply them to the African context. But in terms of a business point of view, it's best to start with the problem first and look for more easily sourced solutions within the African context, as opposed to trying to import a European solution. So an example of this would be looking at the sort of paper industry where Kenaf can be used. So rather than saying, oh, we need to use solar panels and use all these kind of technologies that are being used in the West, why don't we look at, Nigeria, for example, has no pulp industry. All of our pulp is being imported from outside of Nigeria. Why don't we use Kenaf as a plant to sort of process and create our own pulp industry using an indigenous crop? So it's going to be growing at a much higher yield compared to other nations, and it's going to be cheaper because you're growing it yourself. So starting with the problem first and working backwards, as opposed to just importing Western solutions, is another reason why we should look to Kenaf. So limitations and obstacles. So there's currently no dedicated Kenaf paper mills, at least in the African context. There are some mills that are being built in North America, in Europe. So you could get a bit more price competitive. And, one of obviously the main business cases is, okay, Kenaf is great, it's sustainable and everything, that's exciting, but is it cheaper than paper that we're currently importing? Can we actually bring the price down? And the argument is yes. I have been speaking with some consultants from the United States who have, tried building their own Kenaf mills. And the only reason why they haven't been able to make it competitive is, one, because the timber and sort of pine industry is being subsidized in the United States. So it's hard to compete with those kind of crops. And then also, there's no dedicated mills for the Kenaf crop. So just by not having a subsidized timber and pine industry in the West African context, or at least in Nigeria, as a case study, and then also building our own indigenous mill dedicated to Kenaf, we can definitely get the price down and make it competitive to the imported paper, imported pulp from other Asian countries. And then also, there's a lack of investment. A lot of people don't really know about Kenaf. A lot of people don't know about how it can be used in this many uses. So moving on to the many use cases of Kenaf. So Kenaf is a really exciting product because not only can it be used for paper making, which I think is the best business case at the moment, but I'll just run through some of these very quickly. The first one being oil spill bioremediation. So like I mentioned in the Gulf oil spill, Kenaf is a hydrophobic product. So there's a company in the US actually who have taken the Kenaf crop from West Africa planted it in Mississippi, grown the crop, processed it, and then they've sold it back to Nigerian oil and gas companies. And you know, this obviously we know this is a case with many things in Africa. We tend to sell the raw material and then we get sold back the value-added product. So this is, you know, Nigeria obviously being one of the biggest oil and gas nations in all of Africa. If we can actually just grow this crop and create our own oil spill product. You know, I'm from the south of Nigeria, where there's a lot of oil spill related issues. We can grow our own sort of solutions to that using the Kenaf product. Again, the drill bit for oil and gas industry. So some of you might know a bit about the oil and gas industry, but essentially the drill bit is the sort of mechanical product that is used to actually drill into the ground. So manufacturing that actual product can be done out of the Kenaf product. Jute bag alternative. So this one was recently released by the IITA, which is a research institute in Nigeria. So basically for packaging perishable goods such as, you know, potatoes, yams, etc., we tend to import jute from Asian countries. Well, we or the one of the research institutes in Nigeria has been able to create their own jute bag alternative out of Kenaf. So now we can actually start selling or creating our own packaging for the sort of agribusiness sector. So that's another very, very big opportunity. I also mentioned the pulp for making paper in a Nigerian context. The lignin extract can be used as a paint thinner, fabrics, you know, and textiles, car parts as well. So in terms of the automotive industry, currently, I think it was BMW, I believe, they use Kenaf fiber to make a product for the, I don't know what it's, I can't remember what the actual name of the product is, but it's on the boot of the car, that slightly fibrous product or fibrous material in the boot of the car, that's also being used or made out of Kenaf currently. Kenafcrete, I say that in a kind of joking way, but Kenaf, you know, there's hempcrete, there's concrete, but you can also make building materials out of Kenaf. And Kenaf also traps in CO2. So when you're building these buildings, you're actually building carbon negative buildings, which is actually a really interesting opportunity. Accessories like bags, you know, items of clothing again. I'll show some more examples of that in the next slide. Non-woven mat material, I mentioned that just earlier. And then cattle feed, which is also very interesting. So, just a couple other pictures. The Kenaf paper on the left there has not been through the bleaching process, but once it's gone through that, it would look just as good as any other paper product. And then on the right, you can see the makeup bag made out of Kenaf. So it's a very interesting crop. I do think there are specific business cases that are stronger than others. When it comes to the oil spill bioremediation product, when it comes to the paper making, I think those are the two strongest, and then also with the agro or the sacks as a jute alternative. So those are the three biggest opportunities. So as you can see, we're looking at the paper industry, we're looking at the oil and gas industry, and we're looking at the agro or agribusiness sector. So one plant being able to cover all of these three different sectors, I think we can all agree that that's an amazing opportunity. Now, just looking at the numbers here, Nigeria imports paper and paperboard, articles of pulp, paper and paperboard was estimated at $509 million in 2018. $509 million is not a small amount of money. I think we can all agree. And, you know, this is just all from importing paper products, all the way from the pulp to the final paper product. And I think that's absolutely crazy. I think in this day and age, if we have a crop that can be used to substitute for these pulp alternatives, why don't we do it? Why is our, you know, and also by creating our own paper products, it would have a knock-on effect on the rest of the country, you know, making like sort of packaging products. So, you know, if you want to create labels for your bottle or your for your tea, say you sell tea bags or whatever, you know, the sort of Lipton tea, that sort of carton can be made out of Kenaf. So you can see how it can split into so many different packaging products. So just 1% of that $509 million is $5 million. So if you can just capture the smallest amount of that industry, you're making a lot of money. So and I put Ghana there as well because, you know, it's not just Nigeria. We've got the whole of Africa, we've got the whole of West Africa. And say, for example, we build a factory in Nigeria, that can be exported to all of West Africa. If you build a factory in Ghana, vice versa. So it's not really about, you know, where the product starts. It's just about getting started, having the right people on board. And finally, I put there, Nigeria imports 100% of its pulp. That's insane. So for those of you that don't know what pulp is, I'll explain in the next slide the process of how paper is made so that you understand how that works. But in terms of the sort of, we import all of our pulp, and then some of the pulp that we use in the paper industry in Nigeria is made out of recycled paper. It's great that we're using recycled paper, but a lot of money we're missing out when it comes to actually manufacturing our own pulp. So just a diagram of the sort of value chain here. As you can see here in gray, we've got the sort of pulp industry, which is a massive sort of blue ocean, as they would say. And, you know, it's a central part of the paper making and the forestry industry. So, you know, just by swapping out the pulp there, that gray box, we can create paper, we can create printing products, we can create sanitary products, you know, even potentially toilet paper, you know, as we saw in the case of the COVID pandemic, you know, people hoarding toilet paper. So we can start creating our own and not having overpriced toilet paper in West African countries. You know, that's a win for everybody. And then finally, paperboard, paper and packaging materials. So let me just quickly go over how paper is made so that we can all be on the same page. I know that it's a very, the words are very small, so I'll just read it out for you. So the first stage is the foresters plant the trees and manage the forest to make sure there's minimal deforestation. Then those trees are chopped down and a truck sort of brings those logs, as it were, to a paper mill. So the bark of that log is chopped off or removed, and then that log is processed into a wood chipper, and the outcome, or what you get out of wood chipper, is a wood chips. And this is for the wood industry, this is not for Kenaf. And once you get those wood chippings, you process that using sort of a digester, you use chemicals, and the product that comes out of that process is what is known as the pulp. So once you get that pulp, you can then add dyes to add colors to it. And then you take the pulp to further processing to make it into a paper product. So the stage where we come from, you know, getting all the way from the forest to making that pulp product, that's where Kenaf can be substituted in. Instead of chopping down those trees, we can plant a renewable crop which grows in about 150 days. We can process that and we can make a pulp material out of it. And then once we get that pulp materials, we can take that to the existing sort of paper mills in Nigeria. We do have some paper mills, but we don't have any pulp mills. So we can take that pulp and take it to the local paper mills in Nigeria, and then obviously apply this to your own country as well. And then that product can be used to make a paper product. Now, I've spoken to some of the people from the Federal Institute of Industrial Research of Oshodi in Nigeria. I've had some meetings with them. And they've actually created a sample Kenaf pulp material. And they, in the past, have taken that pulp and they've given it to the paper mills in Nigeria, and they've tested it, and they've confirmed that the product that comes out, it works perfectly. The product that comes out is a great quality paper product. So the question is now, we know that it works. We know that we have the raw material. What is stopping us from actually doing this? And I think that that's where the investment comes in. So that's a brief understanding of how sort of Kenaf is, or the pulp material is made. Now let's go over the sort of partners that we'll be working with if we actually do start a project when it comes to the Kenaf paper. we've got the Federal Industrial Institute of Research. So I'm currently working with them to create a feasibility study on the actual, feasibility of this project. Everything from the marketing to the processing to the manufacturing, the whole sort of gamut of things. We want to make sure that, if we're getting people on board to invest in the project, we know what we're doing. We know every single digit. We know where every single cent is going. So we're working on a feasibility study with them. We've also got the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture in Nigeria. So they help with the sort of beginning stages of the supply chain. So, getting the right seeds and working with the farmers, making sure that the crop is growing in the right regions. What are the right regions to grow it? What's the best soil to grow it in? So in terms of, I've also spoken with guys from this institute as well. And I can confirm that, the roadblocks are not actually at the farm gate. We've actually, which goes on to the third sort of partner, the Kenaf Development Association of Nigeria. So many years ago, the Nigerian government created an initiative to create a sort of cooperative of Kenaf growers in Nigeria. And they're sort of spread out across different states in Nigeria. And so, as you can see, we've got the growers, we've got the seed, we've got the crop, we've got the researchers, we've got the industrial researchers, we've got the agricultural researchers. So all really that's remaining is that financial investment and partners to actually get this off the ground and for us to create a prototype of the product. And so in terms of the next steps and what we're looking to do, obviously I've got my email there and number there if you need to reach me. But what we need to do in terms of next steps is creating a feasibility study, which I'm working on right now, like I said, with Firo for the pulp material. If you are interested in the oil and gas application, please also reach out to me. I have been speaking with people about this as well. There's an organization called NOSDRA in Nigeria, and they deal with like oil spills, etc. I'm in constant relations with them, talking about using Kenaf as a product for sort of oil spill remediation. So, but we're focusing on the pulp for now, because I do think that's the best use case. And also in the future, we will do the bioremediation product out of Kenaf. After that, hopefully after this, we're gonna get some, interest from this, and as well, I'll share the recording. And yeah, we should get some investors by hopefully 2021. We can have some discussions around how we can structure the investment and how we can proceed with this. And then next step after that would be to meet with the paper mills. So there's two options that we can go with. One is that we can create the pulp material and then partner with the paper mills in Lagos, Nigeria, for example. The only reason why I'm speaking about Lagos is because I'm in Lagos. I know the Nigerian context better than others, but we can also look to doing this in Accra, because, the Ghanaian government has been very forward-thinking and progressive in terms of investment and creating a very healthy business environment. So, if we're not able to do this in Nigeria, you can also do this in another African nation such as Ghana. And so we can create the pulp and sell it off to the paper mills in Lagos, Nigeria, or we can own the entire supply chain all the way from crop to finalized paper product. So obviously the second option is a lot higher business investment. And then finally, we're going to create a business plan in terms of, our marketing strategy and everything in between. So I kind of sped through that. And, that's kind of all I had to say today about the Kenaf investment opportunity. And just to round up for those of you that turned up late, there's three main business opportunities for Kenaf, depending on the sector that you're most passionate about, most focused in, most invested in. The first one, and the most promising one, is Kenaf for the pulp industry for making paper. As I shared in the previous slide, we're talking about $500 million is lost by the Nigerian economy due to importing of paper products. The second one is the oil spill remediation. As a lot of you know, there's a lot of oil spills in Nigeria, causing a lot of damage to the environment, which I think that, you know, if we do create some buzz around this, we can definitely get a lot of investment from international organizations, from USAID, etc., for any sustainable projects like this. And then finally, for the agribusiness opportunity, so for the jute bag alternative, and I think that will require the least investment. But I do think that in comparison to the scale or the amount of money that can be made, is not as big as the other opportunities. So I will leave it now open to the floor. If you've got any questions, we haven't got too many people, so you can unmute yourself. You can ask a question. Yeah. Any questions? Any misunderstandings?
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. My name is Goki. Thanks for a very, very clear presentation. My question has to do with competitiveness of Kenaf. Keen to know how many more countries where it grows, and how the expected yield in Nigeria would compare with the yield in those countries.
Okay, that's a great question. So I'm going to be honest with you, I don't have the numbers on that, but the fact that Kenaf is actually indigenous to West Africa would mean that, you know, in terms of the yield, we have the potential to have the highest yield. Now, whether our current yield is as high as it could be, whether it comes to the quality of the seed or, you know, the sort of agricultural processes, I don't know. I do know that in terms of other countries that are currently growing Kenaf, I know that the United States has invested in Kenaf. I gave the example of the United States company that actually grows a oil spill product. So it is growing in Mississippi right now, in certain southern states in the US. But in terms of the numbers, in terms of percentage and yields and stuff, I don't have that as of yet. But we are doing a feasibility study with FIRO, and out of that feasibility study, we will be able to present the sort of findings in terms of how competitive we are, basically. So yeah, I'm sorry, I can't really answer that question like very clearly, but I want to be transparent and tell you I don't have those numbers. But I think after we do the feasibility study, we'll be in a much better place. And yeah, I think I'll share the findings of the feasibility study in the following webinar.
Okay, all right. So thanks for that. The second question I have, maybe it's something you may also want to consider as part of the feasibility study in the event that you don't have the answer readily, is the landing costs, or how much it costs the paper company in Nigeria to import versus what we would, I mean, if you produce the same thing from Kenaf, how competitive as well that will be. Because indeed, if it's going to be cheaper, as we currently have with rice importation now, because bringing it into the country is much cheaper than those who are growing locally. So will Kenaf also be in that position? Because then that will make it a bit challenging initially until you're able to drive the cost lower.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you, and especially with the rice situation in Nigeria. I do think that there are some initiatives that the governments can take to sort of help protect the Kenaf industry. If we create enough buzz around this, if we make the right connections in government, you know, we can do stuff to help, you know, support the Kenaf industry. And I agree with you. You know, the two main questions are: is the Kenaf product, or is it going to be a good quality paper product, and is it going to be price competitive? And until we do that sort of feasibility study, it'll be not very easy to tell, really. And you know, that's part of the sort of discovery of it. But I have faith that it will be price competitive. Like I said, I spoke with a consultant from the United States. He's been working with Kenaf for over 2 decades. And he said that, you know, one of the main reasons why Kenaf is not price competitive is because there isn't a dedicated Kenaf paper mill. And then also the subsidies that are given to specific governments to support the normal or the conventional tree paper making industry. So I have hope that it will be, but you know, business is not about hope, it's about the numbers. So until we get that feasibility study, it'll be hard to tell. But the good thing about it is that, you know, after that feasibility study, we're not going to force the Kenaf thing, because there's so many other industries that a Kenaf can be applied to. So if we find out that, you know, we can't be price competitive with Kenaf, which is a possibility, we can look into the bioremediation product. And I do think that we'll be able to beat the United States when it comes to bioremediation products. Because first of all, the processing needed for the bioremediation product is not actually that much. All that they do is they take the core of the Kenaf and then they grind it. And that product is what they use to soak up the oil spill. So in terms of, you know, price competitiveness, you know, we can definitely compete with that. The paper is really where the biggest amount of money is to be made, and a lot of research will need to be done to make sure that we're competitive. So yeah,
many thanks.
Sorry?
No, I was just thanking you that it's an exciting opportunity, and I really look forward to the feasibility stage as well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hopefully we should have that by you know, January next year. But sometimes these government organizations are slower than you wish. So yeah, let's see how quickly we can get that through. Any other questions?
I've got a question. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry. Abiola, can we just say who he's got a question, and then we'll move on to you, and then any other people after that.
Okay, very quickly. It's quite off topic.
Okay. Go for it, Sari.
Yeah, so it's quite off topic, but I liked what you said about the resources in Africa being plentiful, and then they're sold to Western countries and priced at a higher price back to indigenous people. Mm-hmm. So I've been very interested in a wind turbine farm in Kenya. It's one of the biggest in the world. And they power back to the UK, all over the world. It's huge, and it's got a lot of investment from the British government, because they were colonized by the Brits. So, and right now everyone's in a race for resources because that's what we've run out of. I have an idea for connecting, basically training the African engineers, young Kenyan boys, because they're very intelligent, or women as well. And then connecting them with macro investors such as the Chinese, because the Chinese are all over East Africa, even in Somalia. Connecting them with them, and then connecting those macro investors who have the manpower, such as the Chinese, with someone like BT or private investors. So how should I go about this? It's just an idea at the moment. What do you think of that based on your knowledge?
To be honest, with all these things, I'd have to learn a bit more about this project, and probably we'll have to talk about this offline. But because it certainly sounds like there's a lot of different, you know, players and different pieces to that puzzle. So for me to be able to give you like an answer right now, I don't know, because yeah, it sounds like if it's a sustainable project, there are many international organizations that might provide funding for it. So you might have to go to Chinese investors or whatever.
The wind farm was built by the British government. Well, it was built by by Kenyatta, but the funding was all from Britain. So they have a lot of money to invest, but I think that they would need a good team to do something.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, we'll probably have to talk offline, because I can't really give you an answer just straight away.
I'll email you or write to you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. It's so interesting, this Kenaf investment. I'm going to check it out in January. I think I'd even invest myself.
Awesome. Great to have you on.
Nice to see you, Malobi. Bye.
Bye. So anyone who was Abiola with a question?
Yes, sir. This is Abiola Ogunshakin. I wanted to ask. I didn't join the meeting on time. Sorry, I came in late.
That's
So
all
I
right.
just wanted to find out. If you have an idea of what the global market is like, and if we have an idea of what the local market in West Africa, for example, in terms of the volume of I mean the volume total target, I mean the volume of the transact, I mean of the market for Kenaf products, talking about the one for paper, for oil spill cleanup, and
Yeah.
also for the agribusiness. So do we have an idea of what the market will be like, and what's the target? If you have a project in West Africa, are you looking at exporting, or you're looking at satisfying meeting the needs of the local market?
Yeah. Yes.
Is it for exports or just for local market satisfaction? And then if it's local markets, how do we get to know what the value of that market will be like? Will it be
Yeah.
worthwhile?
So in terms of the paper, I've just put the slide back up. So in terms of the paper, one of the good things about this opportunity, I think, is the fact that just the local market of Nigeria is enough. Like, because when you deal with export, then you start dealing with supply chain and customs clearance and all this kind of stuff. But the idea of actually just say, for example, the Nigerian context, growing this plant in Nigeria, having a localized mill in Nigeria and selling it within Nigeria, not having to deal with any sort of customs or anything like that. Because from my export experience, there's a lot of issues that arise from supply chain. So Nigeria alone we're talking about $500 million. And we're not talking about $500 million naira, $500 million. So, and that's from just the entire paper industry. So we're talking about the pulp and the final paper products. So let's say we're just talking about the pulp. Let's say the pulp industry is just a fifth of that, right? So we're talking about $100 million just for the pulp industry that we're losing every year because we're importing, Indian pulp. And just to give some people some context on the Nigerian context to date. So Nigeria, we used to have a pulp and paper mills, indigenous, owned by Nigerians, owned by the government of Nigeria. I believe that was around the 60s. And then due to mismanagement, etc., things weren't going so well. Then it got passed over to private individuals. And unfortunately, the mill wasn't run very sufficiently, and eventually the pulp mill was closed down. But on the other hand, we still have the paper mills. So just to remind people, the difference between the paper mill and the pulp mill. The pulp mill is taking that Kenaf product, making it into a pulp product, and then the paper mill can take that pulp and make it into a final paper product, like the paper you see on a day-to-day basis. So we still have the paper side, but we don't have the pulp side. So just capturing that pulp mill in Nigeria, it's enough money to make this project more than successful and to give the investors more than their money back. Now, the only challenge that we need to just make sure, like Goke mentioned, is making sure that it's price competitive. Because if we're getting flooded with Chinese paper, Indian pulp, we can have the same issue that we have in Nigeria with the rice. So we need to organize it in a way and make sure that we're actually producing in such a capacity that we're just cheaper than the competition. So yeah, looking at $500 million, even if we say 1% of that $500 million is $5 million, and you convert that to naira, now you're laughing. So it's a very, very big opportunity. It's just, can we get it price competitive? And that's what we're going to figure out over the next couple months. And then also to answer the second part of your question. Sorry, just to answer your second part of your question, and then we can also export it to other, African countries. So, once we deal with the Nigerian context, we can actually look to moving in to other West African countries as well. Sorry, you were going to say something as well.
Yeah, someone just asked on the chat. It was asking about I think the question is about whether the Kenaf pulp can it be used to feed this existing paper mills that we have in Nigeria? Would it
Yes.
work with existing equipment that is used for paper?
Yes,
the paper
yes,
mills?
yes. So I covered that very briefly earlier on the call. So there's a research institute in Nigeria called FIRO, Federal Industrial Institute of Research, Oshodi, right? I've been in constant contact with them. I've been to their offices a few times, and they've actually created a pulp prototype, and they have actually given that prototype to a paper mill in Nigeria, and they've confirmed that the pulp material is actually suitable and can be used to make paper. So in terms of Kenaf, whether Kenaf can be used to make paper successfully in the existing paper mills, that's actually confirmed.
Sorry, can Jake mute his phone? It's
yeah, Jake.
there's a
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to confirm, yeah, it can be used
Thank
in
you,
the existing mills.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Any other questions?
Yeah, hello, Labi, it's Terry.
Yeah, hi Terry, how are you doing?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Terry.
My question is around the finance piece. Just really, what type of investment are you looking at, or is it this project looking for?
Sorry, I didn't hear that very well. Say that again. Hello? Terry, can you repeat the question? I didn't hear you very well. I think we might have lost him.
Hello.
Okay,
Hello.
I think I was asking about what kind of investment are you looking at? Probably wanted to know the value. What's the value of investment required? What are the investment type? Are you looking at buying land? Are you looking at buying? I mean, what is it about? You know, because it's possible for some people.
I think
to
no.
have,
Sorry, I just jumped back in.
Okay, it's back in. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm back in. No, I think I was. I mean, I wasn't going to go so deep into. Yeah, I'm back in. I wasn't going to go so deep into the types of investment, but I suppose it was just really about having a scope of what type of investment was needed in terms of, is it in the thousands, the hundreds of thousands, the millions, and then what is the sort of turnaround time to get at least the first type of return on investment back? And I suppose you've mentioned there's paper, there's various activities that can happen once we harvest. So it's like, what's the time to harvest? So the ROI happens at harvest, and then anything else that happens.
Yeah. So in terms of the investment amount, what I plan to do is break it into sort of stages. So the first stage would just to build a prototype of the pulp material and make sure that it's a good quality product. That should maybe cost in maybe $100,000. But then building the final, so it depends on whether after the feasibility study, whether we're just going to be doing the pulping or we're going to be doing the pulping and the paper mill. I think we should just do the pulping, to be honest, to start. And I don't want to really throw random numbers out there because we haven't done the feasibility study. But realistically, it could get up to $800,000 to $1 million. If it's managed properly, you know, it could be cheaper than that. But it's because we have to do a lot of research into like where are we going to be sourcing the machines, how are we going to manufacture our own machines, and you know, can we use existing machines for other products? So there's a lot of different parts at play here. So it'll be very hard for me to just kind of throw a number out there. That's why this webinar was more of an exploratory session, just to gauge the interest and build a sort of list of people that might be interested in the opportunity. And then also, once we go further down the line, I do want to sort of reach out to international organizations, because this project here will be hitting a lot of sustainable development goals, which means that we can apply for funding from different sort of international institutions. So yeah, it's hard to really throw numbers out there without having a feasibility study, a business plan.
Yeah.
Realistically, it could be up to $1 million. Realistically.
Okay, that's understood. I mean, we've spoken, so you know why I'd be coming from a finance perspective. because it's something that sounds like it's interesting for my platform.
Mm.
So I definitely want to be kept in a loop of, you know, when you've got the numbers for the feasibility and stuff like that.
Awesome.
And I think there's something else that just slipped my mind. As you mentioned something, and my brain went ting-a-ling, but then it's lost.
Was it the
my train of
funding
thought at the moment? But
was it the funding from the sustainable development thing, or?
No. Actually, no. Sorry. Then the other thing was more about because I'm listening to you and you're mentioning it as a project. So I think it's like who becomes the stakeholders, or what are the, you know, what is how because I'm listening to the project and now it sounds like, okay, this is going to end up looking like a private entity. So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand as well, you know, what are the stakeholders, or how do people get involved? Is it purely by, if you invest into it, you become part owner? And just really trying to understand that as well. I mean, I know you still said you've got to do the feasibility, and I know this might be really early on, but it's just something that, you know, because I'm not sure about everybody else listening in, but for me, like I said, my platform, our aim is to provide finance to agribusiness across the African continent. So even in we're providing the finance, is about understanding what your model is, to understand
For sure.
how we be involved.
Yeah. So what I plan to do is actually, once we have all the interested parties together, is actually incorporate a new you know, company entity to, you know, sort of build this from the ground up. So I think it's, first of all, we need to sort of find out who's interested, how many people are interested, and then once we get a sort of team of people, we can sort of build something around that. So the plan would be to create a separate new entity that everyone can sort of get shares in, depending on their level of investment. So that's the original plan.
So like a special purpose vehicle.
Exactly. But there's two. I mean, I you know, I have a friend who has a lot of experience with this kind of projects, and he says either an SPV or you know, an organization can be created, and then people can sort of in simple terms loan money to that organization and get returns on that. So those are the two, but usually an SPV is the best way to start these kind of projects. Yeah, that's the idea for now. But you know, I think once we get the people together,
because I suppose.
Yeah, carry on.
No, because I was just about to say, the difference between the SPV and the loan, and the company with the loans. The SPV would be a longer time for return on investment, as opposed to a loan, which would probably have more of a fixed, you know, ROI. Whereas the SPV is like, well, actually, it could be a 5-year thing. It could be because it's different. If you've invested into a company, we know that companies take time to you know, mature and actually give something back. Whereas if it's coming in the form of a loan, then it's like the terms of the loan will be, I suppose, outlined at the beginning, but it's still more likely that the loan gets repaid quicker than an investment. But I'm thinking, you know, for me, I'm just thinking out loud as well, and just so we can get clarity on what the options are. And I think both options are great. So whichever one you put forward, you know, I'm still going to be interested in seeing how we can get involved.
Yeah, and like I said, it's an exploratory session because I did touch on the bioremediation product, because there might be people here that are from the oil and gas industry. They have connections with, you know, big oil and gas companies in Nigeria, and they can be like, all right, I can make this, you know, fairly simple bioremediation product, and I can just approach a Shell, a Mobil, an Exxon, whatever, and, you know, sell it to them. So it's exploratory. I do think the paper is the biggest opportunity, but you know, some people might be more interested in the oil and gas bit, or some people might be more interested in the agribusiness jute bag alternative. So yeah, it's until, I think once we have that feasibility study, we get the interested investors involved early next year, and then we can sort of build a sort of SPV or whatever we need to for the finance side. Any more questions?
Okay. Thank you.
No worries.
Okay, so going forward, what's the, although it's asked the question, but how do you engage further? How do we?
Yes.
For me, I'm interested, and I'd like to know, how do we take it further?
Yes. So just you see the email at the bottom there, info@panafricantraders.com. Just all you need to do is just send an email with interest. Just, you know, it doesn't have to be very complicated. Just I'm interested, or here's my name, here's my contact details. So I'll build a list of people that are actually interested in the project, and then we can sort of go from there. So if you just drop me an email, and I'll keep you guys updated on how we'll be working together and the next steps. There's another question on there. Sorry, I can't read it right now because my laptop is messing up. It was about any plantations. So I mentioned earlier that the Kenaf Development Association of Nigeria, they're working sort of as a cooperative. They've existed for over 10 years now, and they've been growing sort of Kenaf in different regions of Nigeria. So in terms of the supply of the Kenaf, there shouldn't be much of an issue. And in terms of the quality of the seed, we have the institutes for that. I think it's mainly now we're talking about the investment, the manufacturing, the processing side. That's where we're coming in now. So any other questions? You can put that email there as well. Just give one more minute just in case someone has a question. If there aren't any other questions, I will happily end the session. All right, so I'll take that as there's no more questions. Thank you very much, guys, for actually joining this and showing interest in this project. I do think that, you know, if we can get this off the ground, it will be transformative, not just for our, you know, ourselves, but for West Africa. It has a lot of potential to actually. And you know, the fact that it's a sustainable project is going to set a very good example for a lot of West African countries. So thanks again. And you know, I hope to get an email from most of you so that we can move this thing forward. If you want a recording, also drop me an email and I'll be happy to help. So yeah, thank you guys and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Lally. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.